Back now at 9:26. They are often controversial topics, partially because we still don't fully understand them. I'm talking about disorders on the autism spectrum and attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, or ADHD. Well, my guest this morning has spent years treating ADHD, autism spectrum disorders, and others, and frankly, she believes that we can do better. Her name is Jennifer Justra-Kozek. She's a psychotherapist. She practices right here in Middlebury. And her new book is out. It's called Healing Without Hurting: Treating ADHD, Apraxia, and Autism Spectrum Disorders Naturally and Effectively Without Harmful Medication. Jennifer, first of all, glad you're here.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, and we're happy to have you here. There's a lot to talk about.
Yeah.
So let's get right to it.
Okay.
The tail end of the title of that book, with harmful medication,
right,
makes it sound like you're really just trying to go after, or at least question, the entire paradigm about how a lot of these disorders are treated. Am I right with that? I don't want to put words in here.
Yeah, you know, actually, I would like a combination of the two modalities to kind of come into conjunction with one another, because I do feel that medication has its place in Western medicine. But I am also a firm believer that we're just not doing enough to address some of the underlying conditions that could be contributing to the autism spectrum disorder.
And a lot of what you're talking about, we're talking about diet. We're talking about dietary concerns here?
Yeah, you know, we're talking about diet. You know, there's more than 3,000 chemicals in the food supply, and some of our children are eating these very unhealthy foods, which are contributing to some of their symptoms. And some other people are actually, some other kids are, you know, could have adrenal fatigue, could have issues such as hypothyroidism, which could be the underlying condition that really needs to be investigated further.
Okay, so before we dive in too deep, just tell us how this all got started, what the research, how the research got started, and what you found so far.
Well, you know, interestingly, like you mentioned, I'm a psychotherapist. I've been treating, you know, clients for many, many years, working with psychiatrists and medical doctors, and really feeling like that was the only way. And then I had my son in 2006, who had a lot of developmental delays, was showing symptoms of being on the autistic spectrum, although many of them, you know, pediatricians, oh, he's just a boy, oh, he's, you know, a little behind, he was premature. So I was listening to that advice and taking, you know, going the next step until we started noticing that he was exhibiting some of these ADHD symptoms, social issues, things like that. And I really thought there had to be a better way.
Okay, so what have you found then?
Well, you know, we decided that with the help of naturopathic physicians, integrative physicians, MDs, there are medical doctors that are treating these disorders. We started doing a barrage of testing, metabolic testing, to discover that he had multiple nutritional deficiencies, that he had gut issues, that the gut and the brain are very, very connected. We actually have more serotonin in our bowels than we do in our brain. And, you know, the medical community will admit that when we're anxious, our stomach hurts. But the same is true the other way around. So if there's something going on in our gut, most likely we're going to suffer from depression, anxiety, ADHD, and even more severe mental illness.
Now, from what I understand, and correct me if I'm wrong, sometimes people who are on the autism spectrum, they're very picky about what they eat. There could be temper tantrums at food time. That in turn leads to nutritional deficiencies, which in turn can exacerbate some of the symptoms. So is that how this is cyclical? And if so, then how can you break that? Because if there's a problem at mealtime, there's a problem at mealtime.
Well, you know, that's really interesting, because that's one of the symptoms a lot of mothers on my I have a Facebook page, Healing ADHD and Asperger's Without Hurting. Lots of moms, that's their biggest concern, their children won't eat. What we discovered with Evan was that when we started addressing some of the food sensitivities, healing the gut, his body was feeling better. He started welcoming some of the foods, you know, like coconut milk, things like that, where all of a sudden he started eating better. So a lot of our kids intuitively won't be eating healthy because they don't feel well. So things like dark circles under their eyes, constipation, and other kind of stomach problems, sometimes it's kind of hidden and we don't know that they're suffering. It's kind of silent. But a lot of other times we know something is wrong. And, you know, moms are the best way of knowing. They know the most.
Okay, so if you would like people to get out and get your book, and I'm sorry that we're just about out of time, what's the one thing you want people to take away if they read Healing Without Hurting?
Well, there is hope. There is help for our kids beyond the medical community, and I think we need to be going out and looking to find underlying conditions and causes. It's a very easy to read book. It's simple. It's from a mom to a mom, and I address it in sort of in a layman's terms.
And here's hoping we can get more double-blinded studies with a lot of this.
Absolutely, and there's lots of studies in my book, many studies involving all of this.
Wonderful. Okay, well, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much for having me.
Great to have you here.
Thank you.
Okay.